Namo Buddha Shakyamuni. This is the beginning of an excerpt of a live interpretation of an oral commentary given by Bhikkhu Thich Tue on the Majjhima Nikaya, the second of the 5 Nikayas or collections in the Sutta Pitaka. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is right speech. So I'm talking about right speech from a more ordinary, mundane perspective. So we are told not to commit it in one of these 4 faults. The first one is false speech. The second one is divisive speech or malicious speech. The third one is harsh speech. And the fourth one is idle talk. So first we have to be able to not committing any of these 4 faults first. This is the very foundation of right speech. So we have to go step by step. And this is the very first thing that we need to realize, that it is something that we should not commit. But once we do not commit any of these 4 faults, does it mean that it is already right speech? Actually, right speech has to also be, be emerging from a right view. It has to be from the sphere of right view that you will be able to produce right speech. So we talk about how, from the perspective of right view, you will be able to live correctly, you'll be able to have right conduct, right action, and then you'll be able to have right speech. So right speech has to embody right view, it has to embody right conduct, right action. But here we are talking about right speech. And so we can also think that from right speech, you can have right conduct and right action. Well, actually, right conduct and right action has to come first, and then right speech to follow. That would be much better, to have right conduct to come first, and then right speech to come second. So what is right speech then? Right speech has to be the kind of speech that can represent or can embody the ultimate truth. It has to be something that can embody, the ultimate reality, and then can transcend the illusion of the life and death cycle, and something that can help another person to transcend and to go beyond the life and death cycle, to go beyond the delusions. So let's talk about the story of the 6th patriarch now. In the past, when he first heard one of the sentences in the Diamond Sutra, when someone was chanting one of the verses and said that you should not dwell on form, sound, smell, taste, touch to give rise to your mind, but you should give rise to your mind which does not dwell on anything. That was when the 6th patriarch heard the verse in the Diamond Sutra. So then right at that moment, he attained realization. So if that is the case, then what kind of speech is that? That is the truth, the ultimate truth. And because it embodies the ultimate truth, so it helps somebody to attain realization. So anything that we do in this life, anything that we say, or our actions, our activities, and if all of them embody the real truth, to help another person to recognize the real truth, then that can be considered as right speech. Because what actually is speech? Speech is something that we use as a language to relay a message, to express a message to another person, so that another person can understand the complete truth. So all this information that we want to express to another person, and another person is able to receive it and to understand the ultimate truth, then that is considered a language. That is considered to be a language, a method of expressing in speech. But what about our hands? Do our hands also have a language? If I were to be so upset and so angry at you that I use this hand to punch you and make you bleed, then what kind of language does this hand produce? It is the language of hatred and anger. It is the speech of hatred and anger. But it is the same hand who also can caress you, who can, express love to you. Then what kind of language is that? What kind of speech is that? If that is the case, when the hand is being used to caress somebody, to express love to somebody, then that is the language of love. That is this a speech of love. So then our actions also is a way to express, the kind of mind that we want to express to somebody. We use our physical actions to express our mind streams and how we feel. We want to express it, and the language is produced by the hand. So what about the Zen masters? When somebody comes to ask them, what is the Buddha Dharma? What is the way? What is the Dharma? Then what happened? Take the case of Master Tui Lao. When he came to see Master Mato, and he asked Master Mato, honorable, venerable abbot, what is the Buddha Dharma? What is the way? But then Master Mato pulled up his leg and kicked Tui Lao, and then Tui Lao rolled a few rolls outside. And then after receiving a kick from Master Mato, Tui Lao just stood up and then started to laugh, and then he walked away. So after many, many years, Master Mato was afraid that perhaps the student Tui Lao was not able to gain any realization. So he sent somebody over to see Tui Lao. And he was told to ask Tui Lao, ever since you received the kick from Master Mato, you went to live in the forest. Why did you end up living in a forest like this? And then do you know what Tui Lao answered? Do you know how he replied? He said, oh, ever since I got one kick from Master Mato, I've never been out of soy sauce, pickles, vegetables, and salt. It means that ever since he received a kick from Mato, he always felt very fulfilled, always complete. He's never out of food. He already feel completely full, completely satisfied already. Just receiving one kick from his master, and he already felt full and completely fulfilled for the rest of his life. So what kind of speech is that? What kind of language is that? That is the speech of the Dharma. That is the language of the way. So for somebody who has already attained ultimate realization, whatever he does, whatever he says, everything is an expression of the Dharma. Everything embodies the truth of the Dharma, the truth of the way. It was the case when somebody came and asked a master, what is the Dharma? What is the way? Then the master just raised the fly chaser, the fly swatter up, and that was supposed to be the language of the Dharma, the language of the way. So you may think that, oh, it's just a fly chaser, a fly swatter, a swatter. So what kind of Dharma is that? But actually, it can be the Dharma according to a person who has already attained ultimate realization. So the same thing with the story that we've heard about how the Buddha raised a lotus flower up, and then there was only Kashyapa who gently smiled when he saw how the Buddha raised the flower up, and he was the only one who actually smiled when he saw that. Whereas the rest of the Sangha members were just being very confused, not knowing what was going on. Then what kind of Dharma, what kind of speech did the Buddha, produce at that moment? And is that considered a right speech or not? Is it? yes, it is actually right speech. So let's say if all of us were walking on the road and suddenly we trip and then we fell face down and then our nose start to bleed, yet at that very instant, we attain realization, then where is the right speech? Can you tell me where the right speech is? Well, you may laugh, but actually there were people who attained realization, through something unexpected like that. Just like Master Van Mon, he attained realization when his master shut the door on him and shovel him, and then his feet were completely smashed. Yet at that very moment, he attained realization. Then you may ask, what are the pith instructions that the master was giving to him? What are the pith instructions that we are receiving from our teachers when something like that happens to us? So, but yet actually he attained realization through something like that. So then we can tell that actually all the actions, all the activities of a realized master, it's always fulfilled with Dharma, with the meanings of the way, but it is just us, whether we have the capabilities to receive what is, given to us when we meet such a master. Yet, in many cases, we come to see a master with a certain expectation. We expect the master to say, wondrous speech to us. We are waiting for the master to say wonderful, wonderful sentences or wonderful speech to us, and then we can become realized. But if we come and see the masters and we look at his face and it looks like he gives us a very unfriendly look, he looks kind of mean, then we feel like, oh, there's no way that I can attain realization through this. So when we come to see a master and he seems to look so strict, and by his strict look we feel unhappy about it already, then what can you be realized with if that's how you feel? So what we want to receive actually is we want to receive loving speech. We want to receive his friendliness. We want to receive his affection. We want to be spoiled by him. So in reality, we want to receive something else from the master, not the true Dharma, because the true Dharma transcends all of these appearances. True Dharma goes beyond all of these appearances. But if we come to see a master, without having this protocolic frame, then anything that we receive from the master, whether he smiles or he speaks or he doesn't speak, or whatever, can also become the Dharma to you. It can show you the way. Even when he doesn't say anything, his silence can also be the Dharma and become the language of the way. If you can actually, have this kind of understanding to receive the Dharma in whichever way, in whichever language, then you may have some hope in attaining some realization. So just like Master Dao Ding, we've talked about him in the past. Long ago, what he did was he was a seller of the baos, the steam buns. He sold steam buns. And he did not really understand much about the Dharma, but every time he was selling steam buns, then he would save a few steam buns to offer it to his master. Well, he would save 2 of them and offer them to his master. And his master's name is Dao Ngo, Master Dao Ngo. So one time his master Dao Ngo told him, he said, oh, you just go on selling steam buns for a few more years, and then after that you go into the temple, you enter the temple, you live with me, and then I would teach the essence of the Dharma to you. So then Master Doubting listened to his teacher, and then after finishing selling the steam buns for a few years, then he went to live in a temple with his master. So he became his master's attendant. Then when it's time to offer foods and drinks, then he would bring drinks, he would bring foods to offer to his master. And then he waited and waited for some pith instructions from his master, and he waited for 3 years, but still his master did not even utter a word to him about the Dharma. Then Master Doubting was pretty upset and actually puzzled. He said, "Oh, Master, you told me to quit selling steam buns, and then I should go and live in a temple with you, and then you would teach me the essence of the Dharma. But it has been 3 years, and what have you taught me? I didn't see that you even teach me anything." So then his master scolded him and said, "Oh, wait, was there any moment that I did not teach you the Dharma, that I did not teach you the way? Every time you offer, food to me, you put the rice in front of me. I, for the sake of you, nodded my head to acknowledge it. And then whenever you offer water to me, I, for the sake of you, nodded my head to accept it. Is it true or not true? And then when you bowed to me before you left the room, I, for the sake of you, also nodded my head to accept it. Was it true or not true?" So if that is the case, then, how could you say that I did not show the way or the path to you? And then right at that moment, Master Doubting attained realization. So realization is so simple, isn't it? Because the truth is, every little single thing is the way, every little single thing is the Dharma. Everything is actually the Dharma, the ultimate Dharma. So then, through this story, what can we say about it? We can actually see that this is right speech. This is the right language of somebody who has already fallen into the sphere of ultimate truth, ultimate reality, ultimate Dharma. Because, to reach ultimate reality or ultimate Dharma doesn't mean that you have to produce a right sentence or a righteous sentence, and only that is considered to be the Buddha Dharma. So if that is the way that we think, then we are actually being very erroneous. If we try to look for the Dharma, but we always wait on or expect to listen to sentences that carry meanings, then that could be very erroneous on our part. That is completely wrong. So have we ever been wrong like that? Well, actually, multitudes of times. Multitudes of times. So we try to memorize this text, we try to memorize this sutra, we try to learn, this text, we try to learn this sutra, we try to learn things that we think that have great meanings, and then we only consider those to be the Dharma or the path or the way. So if that is the case, then it may not be the right Dharma that the Buddha is trying to point out to us, of what the true Dharma is. So because the true Dharma, the ultimate Dharma, it transcends all languages, transcends, all kinds of speech. Actually, it transcends all languages of the mundane world. It transcends all kinds of speech of the mundane world. It transcends all the dharmas, all the phenomena of the mundane world, because according to a highly realized person, a highly realized master, then how how does he see all the dharmas or all the phenomena? He sees that all dharmas, all phenomena are actually the true Buddha Dharma. So what does it mean then? It means that we can use, multitudes of dharmas to speak the Buddha Dharma. We can use multitudes of phenomena to express the Buddha Dharma. So for a master who has already attained, ultimate realization, he doesn't need to go through regular schooling. He can teach whatever he wants to teach, and sometimes his teaching is it's even more superb than those who have to go through schooling in order to give teachings. Yes, sometimes it's beyond those who have graduated from, eminent universities or colleges. It is because for somebody who has already attained ultimate realization, he has learned everything from this vast expanse of Dharma Dhatu, from the, cosmos, and he has learned them all already. Within this Dharma Dhatu, there's nothing that he has not learned. So this whole cosmos, this whole Dharma Dhatu is the, how do you say, a universal college, a universal university that teaches them, and so they learn from this universal cosmos. So in that way, you must understand that all dharmas, all phenomena in the whole cosmos, in the whole Dharma Dhatu, are actually giving you teachings, are actually elucidating the Dharma. So what is this? What does this correspondent to? It's actually correspondent to what we call ever learning, meaning like we are happy to learn from every which circumstance, from every which way. It's an ever learning experience, and this is something that is expressed in the 10 aspiration that was spoken by Samantabhadra. Isn't it true? So whether the circumstance is favorable or unfavorable, it is still a lesson that we can learn from. Well, even if we're staying here, right? We're sitting here. It doesn't matter whether it's favorable or non-favorable. So even so, we're sitting here in this very vivid presence. We don't feel sad. We don't feel happy. We feel neutral. We don't feel like we need to accept something or abandon something, to reject something or to affirm something. We're just sitting here in the vivid presence. Then, will we be able to learn the Dharma? What kind of lessons can we learn from just being here in this very vivid presence? But if we are true practitioners, if we are true learners, then the lessons that we can learn from just being here, sitting here in this very vivid presence, this very pure, vivid presence, then it can become a big lesson for us. So if we can learn these lessons of being in the pure, vivid presence, right in this very moment, then we can realize that throughout the whole cosmos, throughout the whole universe, throughout the whole Dharma Dhatu, all dharmas are actually pure, right in the very vivid presence. So anything that is said to us from a master, or anything that is said that has the power to destroy the delusions, destroy the illusions of somebody, so that that person can transcend the delusions of the life and death cycle, then that can be considered as right speech, and that can be considered as right view as well. And why? Because what it is being said that transcends, that kind of speech is not being bonded or in bondage or within the mundane world, within the mundane dharmas and phenomena. So then, only then, that kind of speech can be considered as right speech. Because if the kind of speech that is not in bondage, then it is not being attached to the two extremes, either love or hate. Well, if you use loving speech towards somebody, well, you may be attached to it. Well, actually, you may not. You may not be attached to it, but the other person may ended up being attached to the loving speech. Because when you say some loving speech to another person, you may not be attached to it, but the other person actually is attached to it. So many of you have had this kind of experience, haven't you? Well, maybe somebody comes and says to you, oh, please follow me, please come with me, and then I will protect you, I will take care of you, I will love you, and then I will make you happy. Oh, all of that sounds so sweet, so pleasant. And so then you pick up your bag and then you follow after that person. And then after a while, he beat you up so badly, and then you ran back home crying. So his speech, even though it was loving, it wasn't true speech. He did not have any affection when he said that, but when you listen to this kind of loving speech, then you felt very touched, very moved, right? Why is it so? Because you love sweet words, because you are sweet tooth. So you were so touched, you were so moved with the person who said it to you. He wasn't really touched, he wasn't really moved. And so then what kind of speech is that? It actually falls into the four mistakes of divisive speech or false speech or harsh speech or idle chatter. So it falls into one of those four mistakes. So, well, actually, we're talking about right view and right speech now, and then we also talk about kind and loving speech, because kind and loving speech is considered to be, one of the four universal taming activities or one of the four assistant methods, right? So then we need to include kind and loving speech in our talk here. But is kind and loving speech equivalent to sweet words or sweet talk? Well, I think that many of us Buddhists have heard teachings on, the loving and kind speech before, right? I've heard many talks about that also. And I think that I myself have already giving a talk about this as well, because it is considered one of the four universal taming activities or one of the four assistant methods. But then in reality, what is kind and loving speech? What is that? Can you define what loving and kind speech to me? Well, actually, loving and kind speech has to emerge from um, a mind of love, a true mind of love. It is not just an expression of sweet love or an expression of love, but it actually has to emerge from a mind of true love. It has to emerge from a mind of true kindness. So just take the Buddha for example, because everything he said actually emerges from his kindness. So everything that he said, every word that came out from the Buddha's mouth became loving and kind speech. Well, if you think that we say words so that we can use those words to pursue people to return to the Buddha Dharma, and you consider that to be loving and kind speech, then that is wrong too. So you have to understand that loving and kind speech has to emerge from the mind of true love, of true kindness toward all sentient beings, so that from this mind of true love and true kindness, you are able to produce the kind of speech, the true kind of speech that would be able to assist the sentient beings to deliver them, to deliver them, and to save them from the delusions and to save them from the cycle of life and death. Only then you can consider that to be loving and kind speech. So then, remember the story of Master Lamte? Lamte asked his master, "Oh, Venerable, what is the essence of the Buddha Dharma?" Then his master gave him 3 slashes. So are those 3 slashes? Is that a form of loving and kind speech or not? So he asked that question 3 times. Oh, Master, what is the summary of the Buddha Dharma? What is the essence of the Buddha Dharma? And all 3 times he was beaten. So then he was so sad. Then he left his master. Then John Tuk told Lamte, he said, "Oh, we are in the midst of the tranquil season. You need to at least come up to pay respect to our master before you leave the sangha, or." So then he went to see his master, and then his master told him that, well, this is in the midst of the tranquil season, so you should go to see Master Dai Mu, and then we'll talk about this later. he said, "Oh, go ahead and go and see Master Dai Ngu, because we are in the midst of the tranquil season, and you keep, going in and going out. It may not be a good idea. Why don't you just go over there, and then we'll talk about this later." So then Lam Te listened to his teacher's instruction, and he went over to Master Dai Ngu. So then Master Dai Ngu asked, "Where are you from?" And then Lam Te said, "Oh, I came from Master Huang Ba's Sangha." So then Master Dai Ngu asked Lam Te, "What did your Master Huang Ba teach you?" Then Lam Te replied, "Oh, every time I ask my master what is the summary, what is the essence of the Buddha Dharma, then I was beaten by him. And each time he gave me 3 slashes, and I don't know what my mistake was." And when Master Daingu heard it, he said, "Oh my gosh, you disciple, your old master, he was just being so kind to you, and you still think that he was at fault." And then when Lam Te heard it, all of a sudden he gained realization. He became realized about something. So after his sudden awakening, he uttered these words. He said, "Oh, the Dharma of Master Huang Ba is very simple. There's not much to it." So then Master Daingu said, "Hey, you disciple, just a moment ago, you complained that your master's Huang Ba was at fault. And now, a moment later, you complimented him by saying, oh, his Dharma is actually very simple. There was not much to it. So what are you trying to say? What do you mean?" And then all of a sudden, instantly, the disciple Lam Te just hit Master Dai Ngu. And then Master Dai Ngu became upset. Then he said, "Hey, you disciple, this is not my problem. You are his problem. So you should go back to see your Master Huang Ba." So then, following that, the disciple Lam Te went home to Master Huang Ba. So then, what kind of language is this? What kind of speech is this? Me, this is considered to be right speech. This is because you know why it is considered right speech? Because right speech is very exact and very momentous. It doesn't rely on previous experiences. It doesn't rely on previous knowledge. It doesn't rely on previous attainments. So to me, that is considered to be right speech. So right speech is something that emerges from the pure nature of the mind that is in accordance with the true reality of the Buddha Dharma. It is in accordance with the true reality of liberation. So now we have to know how to define right speech, very precisely, very clearly like that. True speech is something that's very practical, yet it embodies the true reality of liberation. True speech is something that doesn't require thinking. Again, true speech is very practical. It doesn't rely on previous attainments, experiences, or previous knowledge. Don't think that right speech is when you memorize the words of the Buddha and you can recite it from your memory and then you consider to be right speech. So if you base your speech on a diluted mind, on a diluted consciousness, or on diluted thinking, then that cannot be considered as right speech. So even if you can memorize, perfectly all the words of the Buddha in the 3 baskets, that is not the kind of right speech that the Buddha is trying to point out to us right now and here, right here and now. So right speech has to be something that in this very exact moment, it does not rely on the past. It has nothing to do with the future. It relates to this very vivid present, only relates to the true reality at this very moment, at this very instant. It relates to the very vivid presence. And it's about the true reality in the very vivid presence. Then that can be considered as right speech. So then let's go back to the other story of the disciple Lam Te. So he went back to see his old master Huang Ba, and then his master Huang Ba asked him, "Hey, disciple, what are you doing? This is the tranquil season, and you keep going back and forth like this. What are you trying to do? What kind of meeting is this?" So then the disciple Lam Te told his old master Huang Ba, he said, "Oh, I am in great gratitude to you. I'm, greatly in debt to you. So I want to come back and to thank you." And then his master asked, "Oh, what happened, at Master Dai Ngu's place? Can you tell me what actually took place?" So then the disciple Lam Te told his master about what happened at Master Dai Ngu's place. And he said, "Oh, this happened and that happened." And so then his master was like complaining. He said, "Oh my gosh, that old Master Dai Ngu, such a trouble master, such troublemaker. Just wait, I'll take care of him later on. Or I'll take care of him later." So then the student Lam Te said, "Oh, no need to wait until later, master." And then all of a sudden, instantly, he gave his master a punch, just as he did to the other master Dai Ngu. He said, "Oh, no need to wait for later on." So no need to wait until later on, because it's just right in this very vivid present. So then his master Huang Ba, start to scream out, "Oh, this foolish guy! He just came here. He gave me he gave me a punch." So then, right at that moment, Chun Ton Tuk flew in and tried to hold Lam Te back. And then what happened at that moment? So right at that moment, Chun Ton Tuk received 3 slashes from his master. You know why? It is because Lam Te and Huang Ba were having a Dharma conversation. This is something that only happened between the disciple and the master. It is something that is between them. So actually, when Master Huang Ba screamed out and say, "Oh, this foolish guy, he came here and gave me a punch." Actually, that very sentence is an acknowledgement that his disciple Lam Te had already attained realization. Yet, on the other hand, the other disciple, John Ton Tuk, he did not understand that. He did not understand this speech that was spoken by his master. He thought that his master was actually being abused by the disciple Lam Te. So, so because he didn't understand that, he didn't have any idea about that. So he jumped in and tried to hold the other disciple back. Because he thought that his master was being hit by the disciple, But Huang Ba instead gave Chun Ton Tuk 3 slashes because, he was at fault, because he did not know what was actually going on or was taking place between the disciple and the master. And so it was a good thing that he received 3 slashes from his master, and it was a good thing for the master to give him 3 slashes. And because the master Huang Ba was actually very joyful, he was very happy because when he screamed out and saying, "Oh, this foolish guy, just gave me a punch," actually is his acknowledgement of his own disciple who had already attained realization. He was just like so happy, and that came out as his speech. But then, because Chun Ton Tuk did not understand it, and he tried to hold back the other disciple Lam Te, so he received 3 slashes. And why? Because he was just being very dumb. He did not understand. He was being ignorant about it. So that is considered to be right speech. That is a form of language. That is a form of speech, and that can be considered as right speech. So this kind of language, this kind of speech cannot be understood by outsiders, by an outsider like Chun Ton Tuk. It is only something that can be understood between the master and the disciple. So that is considered to be right speech, because right speech has enough power to help another person to transcend all the delusions, so that they can transcend the samsaric world, to transcend the life and death cycle. Only then can that be considered, or can it be called right speech. So the kind of speech, the kind of language that is in accordance with the ultimate or the true Buddha Dharma, that can help open up or unlock the wisdom mind. So the kind of speech that can unlock or can open up um, the wisdom mind, so that um, so that it can deeply move, or it can deeply affect another person's mind stream, so that all of his karmic imprints, all of his karmic attachments, all of his karmic clinging can be completely and instantly destroyed or eliminated or diminished. All the kind of bondage within a person's mind stream, then that can be considered as right speech. So it has to be the kind of speech that can unlock or open up the wisdom mind of liberation to help them become liberated. So we have to think about this. Right speech doesn't necessarily be spoken in accordance with the Four Noble Truths, or it has to be in accordance with. Well, actually, to speak in accordance with the Four Noble Truths is another story. But anyway, right speech doesn't necessarily mean that we have to follow the principles, such as the principles of the Four Noble Truths, or the principle of the interdependent origination, or with any kind of other principles. So, right speech is something that doesn't follow the future, doesn't rely on the past. Right speech is something that only relies on right view, because right view itself is already non-dependency, right? So if we speak in accordance with our knowledge, then we are actually relying on our knowledge. If we speak in accordance with our experiences, then we are relying on our experiences. So that is already dependency. So if we are saying something that is not relying on our knowledge, not relying on our experiences, not relying on our attainments, on our meditative efforts, then you can consider that to be right speech. So how can you say something that is not relying on your knowledge? Can you try to say something that is non-dependent, non-relying on your knowledge? So just like the old masters, the old Zen masters in the past have said, what have they said? They said, oh, if you're good enough, then you can say a word to me or a sentence to me without having to use your tongue. So if that is the case, if you speak to me without having, to use your tongue, then you may be saying the right thing. So speaking the truth without having to move your tongue, to have your tongue unmoved, then that is right speech. Then can you try saying something like that to me? So right speech is to be able to say the truth without having, to move your tongue. So, but right now we're moving our tongues a lot when we try to speak, right? Then don't consider that right speech. So then again, right speech, according to the Zen masters, is something that you say that that you don't even need to move your tongue. So what does it mean here? It means that when you speak or when you say something, um, you don't rely on your consciousness to say it, but actually it's just a function of the wisdom mind. And because it is the function of the wisdom mind, you say it or you speak it out just so that you can express the true reality or the true dharma, then that can be considered as right speech. Just like when we say something about prajna, we said that prajna is the kind of wisdom that doesn't know anything, but there isn't a single thing that it doesn't know. But then when we talk about right view, we say that right view has to be something that is non-dependent. It's non-dependency. So then from the sphere of non-dependency of right view, if we can produce the kind of speech or the kind of language that does not rely on our previous knowledge, our previous experiences, our previous attainments, then that can consider to be right speech. And this right speech has to be able to embody the reality, the true reality. So there are many things that you can talk about when you want to talk about right speech, but this is the essence that you need to understand. So in the future, when you want to say something, but then you have to rely on your conscious mind, you have to rely on your thinking, your conscious thinking, then you are not really speaking the right speech, or you're not you're not speaking right speech. Well, so in the future, whatever you like to say, you should say it without having to rely on your conscious thinking. Oh, well, but then to like or not to like, if you say that you can say whatever you like, then, liking alone, it's already not a right contemplation. So, in truth, right in this very vivid presence, if something you want to say emerges or comes out, not based on your thinking, not based on your conscious thinking, not based on your previous experiences, on your contemplation, you don't base your speech on any of that in order for you to come up with, something to say, thinking that, oh, this is the right thing to say versus this is the wrong thing to say. If you can produce the kind of speech, the kind of language that is beyond all of those dualities, all those, all the discernments or dualistic discernment, then that can be considered as right view. So let's say if somebody suddenly called out your name, you hear your name, right? And then you turn around. Well, actually, this is more like right conduct, right action, but actually it can also be considered as a kind of speech, a kind of language, because it shows that we have heard them calling us and we wanted to express to them that, yes, we have heard them. Yes, I already heard you. Then you turn around. So then after you turn around, you either smile or you nodded your head, showing that, oh, yes, I already heard you. Well, at that moment, maybe you had something in your mouth and then you could not verbally express that, oh, I already heard you. So then you nodded your head and you gave that person a smile instead. So that is also a kind of speech, a kind of language. So when you meet somebody and the two of you nod your heads to greet one another, then that can also be considered as right speech. Well, this can be a better example of right conduct, right action, but actually it can also be an example of right speech as well. Well, this can be a better example of right vitality, but actually it can also be an example of right speech, because if you have a certain kind of information that you want to express truthfully to another person, and that person is able to receive the information or the expression from you in the most truthful way, then that can be considered as right speech, or it can be considered as a kind of language, a language of expression. And this kind of language doesn't require verbal expression. Um, it is non-verbal. So remember King Fu He? He left a kind of language that is beyond language, the kind of language that only very highly realized beings or highly intelligent beings are able to understand. So he used all these different sticks, whole sticks and broken sticks, so unbroken sticks and broken sticks, and then he used them as trigrams. Then he came up with the Bakwa system. This is north, south, east, west. And this trigram has three unbroken sticks, and then this trigram has three broken sticks, just like that. So that is also a kind of language, but that is transcendental language. It's a language beyond language. But this is the kind of yin and yang language that belongs to the classical culture of the East. So only people with very high intelligence can just look at these sticks, these triagrams, and can understand what they are, what they are supposed to represent. So without, deep research, you won't be able to understand it by just looking at them. So then when you look at all these triagrams, the Bakwa triagrams, you can tell that this is a language beyond language. It's a profound language, a language of profundity, that people from the past have come up with. Well, actually, it was devised by King Fuhi, and that was all. Just the trigrams, just the sticks, the broken sticks and the unbroken sticks. So anyway, the kind of language that was introduced or devised by Fuhi, it's something that that is very profound, and it may not be easily understood by the Westerners, and also the people from the East. They have to actually receive, a, a genuine lineage of transmission. Otherwise, they too may not be able to deeply understand the meaning of this profound language, of this non-verbal language of Ba Qua. So with such a profound language, they would be able to tell everything that is happening in this whole cosmos, about everything, all the dharmas, all the phenomena, and all they need to do is just sit in one place and use the different triagrams, use the broken and the unbroken sticks, and then they were able to tell everything that is happening in the world, in the whole universe. So they all they need to do is to put together the unbroken sticks of the broken sticks, and then put this together with that, and then they were able to calculate everything, and then they would become hexagrams or triagrams. And these hexagrams or triagrams are actually very, very dynamic, and all you need to do is to give them your name and your birth date and birth time, and then they were able to calculate your whole life based on the formation of these broken and unbroken sticks of these triagrams. They were able to tell everything that would be happening in your life, throughout your life, what's going to happen. Everything that happened ever since you were a child until you become a mature person, they were able to tell everything without, any errors, without any mistakes. So what kind of speech is this? What kind of language is this? Actually, it's utterly profound. It's utterly beyond our imagination. So actually, this is, this is very profound. It's so profound, and our Eastern civilization has this kind of utterly profound language that no one in the world, in the present day, can actually figure out about the language of Ba Qua, because it's just beyond language. And so this is also a language. It can be considered as a non-verbal profound language. So that when you look at these broken and unbroken sticks, so this broken stick is on top of that unbroken stick, and this is there, and that is over here. And then, you look at them, you actually, become blind because you just don't understand anything. But then a highly intelligent person who's trained in Bakwa is able to tell you everything. And so then after you listen to them and you feel like, oh, I want to follow you and become your student. This is superly profound, but this is still within, the mundane world. So this is the super language of the mundane world, that has the ability to explain about everything in this cosmos. The sun, the moon, the stars, every movement in this cosmos can be explained by ba qua, which is a non-verbal language. So how can you explain things about the cosmos just using broken and unbroken sticks? But so then you can understand that this is the kind of language that is beyond language. So, for example, when the Buddha raised a lotus flower, and then his student gave him a smile when he saw that, then that can also be considered as a language beyond language. So there was a story of a man who came to see the Buddha, and he wanted to test the Buddha's abilities. So then he scribbled something on a piece of paper, and then he showed it to the Buddha, and then he asked the Buddha, "Oh, world honor one, can you please tell me which is the front of the paper and which is the back of the paper?" So then how did the Buddha answer him? So no matter how the Buddha would answer it, the Buddha may ended up being stuck in the middle. So then what did the Buddha do? So then the Buddha went to the threshold of the door, and then the Buddha asked the man, "Oh, can you tell me whether I'm stepping in or stepping out?" Well, you wanted to know which is the front of the paper, which is the back of the paper. Then now, am I walking in or walking out? Can you tell me? So if you could tell me, and give me a right answer whether I'm walking in or stepping out, then I will give you an answer regarding which side is the front of the paper or which side is the back of the paper. Well, so then the other man had to give up. Well, of course, that is a kind of language and a kind of transcendental language, because for people who have already transcend the world, who have transcendental wisdom, then from the ultimate level of all of their actions, all of their activities, all of their conducts become a way of expressing the ultimate truth, and it is an expression of ultimate truth. So just like the two masters, Kui Sun and Ngun Sun in the past, they were in the midst of picking tea leaves. So then Master Kui Sun said, "Oh, I heard that you have already realized the great Dharma, or you have actually realized the great way. So can you show me your understanding by doing something to show how you are actually a lion king?" And then his disciple Ngun Sun on the other side start to shake the tree. He started to shake the branches vigorously. And then his master replied, "Oh, you are truly a lion king, truly a lion king." Well, so that's all his disciple did, just shaking the branches, shaking the tree very vigorously. But then he was able to express something that probably none of us could understand, but only, his master, or those who are, living in that moment, in that circumstance, was able to understand. So, well, in some cases, a master may be saying something that is righteous, that is proper, that is in accordance with the truth of the Dharma, and another person is able to understand it, and those words are able to bring the other person closer to the truth, to unlock his insight, and he become realized, then that can be considered as a right speech or the right language. But then there are other cases when something happened, between two people. And for example, these two people, are sitting, having tea with one another, and they are actually sharing stories, sharing experiences, confiding in each other from morning until evening. Supposedly, they were communicating, confiding in one another. And then when evening came, one person stood up, and then he said farewell, and then he said, "Oh, thank you so much for your pith instruction. Thank you so much for opening my wisdom eyes. Due to your pith instruction and your advice, your guidance, that now I understand the profundity of the Dharma." And then as a third person, we may thinking, "Oh, but I haven't heard you say anything. So what kind of, reality or what kind of truth, in the Buddha Dharma are you talking about?" So silence in itself, it's also, it can also be a kind of pith instructions. So then long ago in the past, at the time of the fourth patriarch, Tao Xin, at that moment, his student Vini Taruchi was standing, and Vini Taruchi, stared at his master Tao Xin. He just stood there. So his master was just sitting in meditation, and then the student was just there looking at his master, and then all of a sudden, after looking at his master for a while, then Vinita Ruchi kneeled down and prostrated to his master. So right in that very, instant, Vinita Ruchi was able to receive the Dharma, fully. So then, after that, Vinita Ruchi was allowed to go to Vietnam and became one of the patriarchs of a lineage in our country. Whereas the fifth patriarch, Hong Ren, he was able to receive the Dharma in a different way and remain in China to help spread the Dharma in China. So you can see now that all you need to do is to look at someone or to look at something. For example, if the disciple is in a state of mental purity, and then from the state of mental purity, the disciple can actually merge, in accordance with the mental state of purity of his master. So what is that then? That is considered to be pith instructions without words. So it's actually non-verbal pith instructions. So it is no different than the Zen Kong-an when they talk about clapping one hand or one hand clapping. So then what is the sound of one hand clapping? Maybe we can try that in the future, to clap with just one hand, and we make a sound with one hand clapping. So if one day you are able to make a loud noise boop with one hand clapping, then then you are able to transcend this Kong An. So that's it for this morning. We can take a break now. Namo Buddha Shakyamuni. Respected Sangha members, this morning we were in the midst of discussing right speech. So right speech has two parts. One has to do with the worldly mundane truth, and one has to do with the transmundane truth. So as far as the worldly mundane truth is concerned, someone with right speech doesn't commit any of the four faults in false speech, such as not telling lies, divisive speech, harsh speech, or idle talk. But as far as the transmundane truth is concerned in regards to right speech, it has to be the kind of speech that is separated from the four extremes, the four affirmation, negation, affirmatives, ending all the negations. So usually we have four notions. Either all dharmas exist, or they don't exist, or they both exist and don't exist, and then they neither exist nor do not exist. So right speech or right view has to be divorced from all those four extremes. Or someone who has right speech has to use the kind of speech according to the view of the Diamond Sutra is beyond the four appearances. They would speak right speech the kind of right speech that is not dependent on the self, the person, the living being, or the soul, or the vital principle. So that's the meaning based on the literature or the phraseology. Right view has to embody the truth that can release you from all the restriction or the obstructions, in regards to words or in regards to activities that bind you to samsara. It has to be something that can release those people from the samsaric world, beyond the life and death cycle, or any kind of action that can help them transcend the delusion so that they can be liberated from samsara. It has to be the kind of pith instruction that can help them to transcend the worldly activities and transcend the three worlds. Whoever has right view would have right speech, because right view is the foundation, and right speech is the working or the functions of the wisdom mind. This morning we talk about loving speech, and loving speech actually emerges from love and from compassion, but right speech has to emerge from wisdom. And whoever has right speech would have loving speech, and if you have loving speech, then hopefully you would have right speech too, because once you have already attained arhatship or have attained ultimate realization, then you would have true compassion. Without ultimate realization, then it's just a form of love. It's just like you see something and then you develop love based on your loving view. But this kind of ultimate compassion has to be from ultimate kindness, because once you have already attained a realization, you can see clearly all the delusions of the samsara, and you see how sentient beings are being bonded in their delusions in samsara, and you naturally develop love toward them, and you want to help them. So your wisdom gives rise to expedient means, and then you would employ the expedient means to bring benefits to all sentient beings, all species in the three worlds. So in the life of a realized person, that's how he manifest his wisdom, and how he would employ his right speech, etc. Because without enlightenment, you really cannot have ultimate compassion. Without enlightenment, without compassion, then you cannot have right speech or right view. So right speech actually is a very high aspect of the four universal taming activities. Right now we are saying that we have right speech, but what kind of right speech? At what level? At the at the mundane worldly level, because we haven't been enlightened yet. So we said that we give rise to compassion to help sentient beings, but this compassion arises from our affections, from our discernment, from our dualities. But true compassion has nothing to do with discernment or comparisons, or because it is ultimately equanimous. All the sentient beings in the three worlds, in the 10 directions, if you haven't yet attained the ultimate realization, then you don't truly understand what true compassion is about. Because once you have the equanimous or equanimity or equanimous wisdom, then you will have a mind of equanimity toward all sentient beings. No one is more closely associated to you than another person, because all sentient beings become just like your red blood fluid, your internal cells, your internal physical organs. Because once you have attained ultimate realization even once, you would understand how you and the sentient beings all have the same vibration, and then all the magnetic fields of this whole universe and of all the sentient beings all have the same vibration, the same magnetic fields, but because each sentient being has a different kind of self-grasping, a different kind of affection or afflictive emotion. So that's why they receive the universal energy differently from the universe. So So actually, right speech has to be from somebody who has right view. So if from right view you produces your speech, then it can be considered as right speech. From the ultimate pure nature of the mind, from the ultimate and supreme enlightened mind, and your speech arises from that, then that can be considered as right speech. So, for example, some people, they don't say anything, they just keep silence, but they look at another person from the ultimate pure view. They use their eyes or their glances, and they look at another person. For example, when you look at the Buddha statue, and it was carved by an artist that has a very deep sense of spirituality, and you look at the eyes of the Buddha, then you can see how his eyes radiates loving compassion and wisdom, and then naturally somehow you develop a sense of devotion, because his eyes radiate so much love and compassion, because it is called the eyes of compassion. So when you look at his eyes, then you are able to sense everything that the Buddha wanted to give to you, his love, his compassion, his wisdom, radiating from his eyes or his glances. Even his body, even though it is just an elusive body, but it has the power to speak to you in regards to speak to you about his purity. So we cannot measure it, but we can sense it, from our sense of spirituality. For example, now let's talk about the natural environment. In this environment, there are many kinds of precious stones. So the vibration of these stones can be measured by some machines. The machines, are able to measure how old they are or how young they are, but they're not able to measure the level of fineness in these treasure stones. But somebody who has an inner spiritual strength, they'll be able to, be able to sense the level of fineness, the fine vibrations when they stand next to the precious stones. So, for example, if you stand next to a precious stone, or you stand next to somebody who has a precious stone, then you have a very wonderful, sentiment or feelings of being at ease, but you don't know why. Sometimes you would go to a mountain, but then it doesn't feel anything because it's just a rocky mountain, not a precious stone. But if you stand next to a precious stone, then you actually can feel it. You can feel the vibrations, or the oscillations of kindness, because they are precious stone. They are the quintessential aspect of the universe. And then sometimes people who have very strong inner, inner strength, you just look at them, or you just hear their names, or you look at their smile, you look at their eyes, and then everything radiates, genuine truth about them. So that in itself is a kind of speech, a kind of language. So for those people who concentrate on living in virtues, through their physical bodies, when they're close to other people, people can also be impressed by their beings. But those who live in a state of auraship, in a very high state of spiritual attainment, they will also be able to impress the gods, the non-humans, and other beings as well. But sometimes we ourselves, we cannot detect that. In the past, there was a story of a chef who was also a Zen master who lived in a temple. He was a chef in a temple, and so at that time, everyone in a temple would have to go down to the kitchen, just like they have to go on alms, and then they would bring the food to the dining hall, and then they would eat there. So on that day, the abbot of the temple went to the kitchen just 1 minute earlier, then the lunch time or the set time, then the chef would even scold the abbot. He say, no, it's not time for you to go on alms yet. You're too early. And then on that day, there were many guests who came to the temple. So he would not take extra rice to cook for the guests. If they were 10 extra guests or 20 extra guests, then he would just pour it in one extra cup of water for each guest. He would not use extra rice, like 50 cups of rice that he would use every day. He would use the exact same number of cups of rice. And then one day, the abbot was ill, and then the abbot asked the attendant to go down to the kitchen to get some ginger. And then the chef found out. He said, no, this ginger belongs to the Sangha members. Why do you come down here to get it without asking me? So then, and then the abbot had to send the attendant back and to apologize, and then to request for the chef to give him the ginger. And then the chef would give the ginger to the attendant and say, okay, here you go, take it, and then leave. So and then one day, he was walking back in front, wandering in front of the temple, just taking a break. And then there was a Mandarin who came on a horse, and the horse saw the chef, and the horse immediately bowed down and kneel down. And then the chef would tell would scold the Mandarin and say, this animal, he's an animal, but he is very sensible, and he knows how high the sky and how deep the ground. And so then the Mandarin was very embarrassed, and he immediately bowed down in front of the chef too. I mean, he's just so very virtuous that even animals and everyone, even the higher authorities, also pay respect to him. But for us, because we are so we're not sensible enough, and sometimes when we're close to the highly realized beings who have great qualities, but still we cannot tell. For example, if you stay next to somebody who has great inner strength, and then you feel you can actually absorb his energy without knowing the reason why, especially for those people who are ill, who have the chance to stand or to be close to someone with higher inner strength. They would be able to sense that very clearly. So this is the kind of law of exchange, yin and yang exchange. It's a law of exchange in this world. We can exchange energy, and sometimes when we see somebody, they don't say anything to us, but they look at us, and immediately it's a kind of language that makes us feel very calm and serene right after that, because the other person is always at peace. And then he turns his mind toward us with all his sense of serenity, or with peacefulness and with calmness. Then immediately we can feel that, and that's a kind of language that can actually help transcend the other person. And sometimes you don't have to say anything. If you just look at each other, you glance at each other, and already you feel mentally unobstructed or unobstructedly connected. For example, if two people are very closely associated, they would call each other and they would say, oh, I plan to tell this to you. And then the other person would say, oh yeah, me too, I was thinking of that too, because they actually are very well connected. Because before we start to open our mouths to say anything, actually they were already connected, from the source, from the oscillations of the mind already. And so then when both of them are moved, they are moved from the original source. This is called when all sounds are similar, then they connect with each other, they are compatible to each other, or all the minds, when they are the same, then they look for one another. And so when they are very close, spiritually, then they are moved, at the same wavelength out there in this original source. So especially those students who truly understand their teachers, they they don't need to learn a lot, but they would live with everything that the teachers give them through his words or through his teachings. They don't need to study a lot, but they just look at their master's eyes, and they don't need to wait for the master to nod his head or to shake his head. They just would just look at the eyes of their masters, and immediately they know what their master wants. So a skilled horse would be scared even of the shadow of the whip. And so the eyes actually, the eyes are a hidden language for people at a very high spiritual level. So for example, let me tell you an example. If you're in the midst of a conversation with someone, and they look tired and their eyes start to look droopy, then you should know that they don't want to carry on the conversation anymore. So then you need to you need to break the conversation there. Instead of asking them, oh, are you tired, can you go on for a little while so I can ask you another question? So you have to be sensible about this. If you look at their eyes and they look like they're a little weary, they're just feeling a little down, then they're no longer enthusiastic in saying things, then you should try to leave early. Otherwise, they won't give you another appointment the next time because they'll be too tired. So the kind of speech or the kind of language in our worldly activities, we can express in different ways. For when we meet somebody, instead of saying hi or hello, they can nod their heads, or they can fold their hands and bow down. So in the worldly mundane aspect, we use different kind of languages to exchange information. And then they would say, oh, whatever the mind says, the mouth would speak. That's the worldly mundane aspect. But as far as trans-mundane beings are concerned, they do not need to use thinking or use the thought process before they say something. Many times they would say things, and then later on they would wonder, oh, how did I know about this? Oh, where did I learn this from? No, actually, they did not learn all of this in this present lifetime. It's not memory, but definitely it is not from their memory, but because it's from their treasury of knowledge or treasury of wisdom. They are able to use the kind of speech that is 100% in accordance with the right view or the ultimate truth, because it is right speech, so it does not need to rely on knowledge or experiences, because it is right speech, so it is not at all part of your practices, your efforts, your knowledge, or your collections of collections of knowledge, or your memories. Well, actually, for us, we study and we learn, and then we make them into our personal experiences, and then we base everything on our attainments and on our accomplishment, and they say that that is right speech. Well, but that is a kind of right speech from the worldly mundane perspective. But for somebody who's already trans-mundane or transcendental, they can say all the truth without relying on the four extremes, or on their knowledge, or on their personal experiences. So anybody can test them or can debate with them, but they'll be able to speak freely and accurately and with confidence with any kind of social stratum, with any kind of social sections, and no one in the in the world can actually debate with them and win over them, because right speech has to be something that is transcendental, that is our divorces from the four extremes, ending all the negations, and is in accordance with the truth of enlightenment, with liberation. So that's how it is as far as right speech is concerned, if you want to see it from a transmundane, transcendental perspective.
Namo Buddha Shakyamuni. This is the end of an excerpt of a live interpretation of an oral commentary given by Bhikkhu Thich Tue on the Majjhima Nikaya, the second of the 5 Nikayas or collections in the Sutta Pitaka. The interpreter takes full responsibility for all errors that are solely due to her limitations in English proficiency and in understanding the Dharma.